Moving into the actual system, the UI is something I want to mention. I don't want to get super in-depth with the UI. I'm just going to say one thing, and it's that I have mixed emotions about the UI, or mixed feelings, mixed thoughts about the UI. It's intuitive, like it does what you want it to. Sometimes I feel like you have to do extra steps just to do certain things. Like at first it would be hard for me to remember like that I got to do this button and then hit this and this to make a party or join a party or leave a party. I just feel like it's not as evident as it once was before on the PS4. Like the party screen was the entire screen, and I think that's something that you just have to get used to. It's more of a me thing, and maybe I just have to familiarize myself way more and be acquainted where everything is, but I feel like I'm constantly just lost with certain things, not everything. The actual home screen is very simple. You have your game icons. It's clean, it's sleek. There's no themes. Obviously, you can't customize your background or anything like that, but it makes everything evident. Like when you're hovering over a game, that's the game that's going to take up the whole screen. That's the game that you're about to press start on and play. I've talked about game versions before. It's weird how they have it set up, but in the UI now you get two symbols if you have the same game on there twice, like a PS4 version and a PS5 version. And then to change game versions is interesting too. Like the UI is just something you have to keep using to make yourself familiar with it. It's not terrible. I've definitely seen worse UIs and more confusing ones. This one looks good, it feels modern, and it does everything you want it to do. You just have to know where everything is and learn really specific things that you want to accomplish and add things and customize little things like game bar, game base, whatever. All those things you just have to really familiarize yourself with. It works how it's supposed to, I guess. It doesn't interfere with your overall gaming experience, so I can't sit here and say, it's holding it back from being much more than what it is. It's just, it is what it is, and I guess I'll accept it, get used to it, and move on. That's the UI. I'm sure it'll keep changing over time. We'll keep getting new features and upgrades to the UI, so it's not something I'm going to really hold on to right now because these things are constantly changing anyway. As I had mentioned before, this is the digital edition, and I want to talk about sort of what that's been like for the year that I've had it, how I've gone about buying games, choosing when to buy them, and what prices to pay for certain games, because I know that people have questioned that in the past or will continue to question that if they're thinking about getting a digital edition. And there's a couple of ways to go about this. I've heard people say they don't want any digital games or don't want only being limited to a digital edition of a game because they don't want to pay full price for the game and that the games don't go on sale. And I'm going to tell you from my own personal experience what I have done to avoid feeling like I've wasted my money. So there's good and bads to this. Obviously, there's going to be sales that will only be on physical games or will constantly be on physical games, right? Let's use Black Friday as an example since it just passed not that long ago. So on Black Friday, games went on sale everywhere. Like the PSN store had sales for digital games and there were some pretty good deals on there. But if you had a physical edition PS5, then you probably had more options to buy certain games at a lower price. And that is one of the situations where, yes, there's going to be a few more options for certain games to be cheaper if you go after the physical disc itself. But that doesn't necessarily mean you won't find just as good deals digitally. You can buy digital games, they come like on a gift card or something at Walmart, and even those went on sale on Black Friday. And GameStop had digital games on sale that you could buy from the website, Best Buy, and so on and so on. You don't have to be limited to just the PSN store. Let's just say the fear of having to always pay full price for a game is not something I live with. I know that I can get a game that I want for a sale price eventually, even if it's not as soon as I want it to be. But I've also noticed that there's constantly sales on the PSN store throughout the year. Like this year, I've seen countless sales, and when one ends, the next one starts, and when that one ends, the next one starts, and so on. And it just snowballs itself, and you eventually are faced with a game you've been wanting that is now on sale, and you probably wouldn't have bought it for full price, but the sale made its way to the digital storefront, and you're able to get that for a reduced price. and not worry that you're never going to be able to get a game because it's full price and you're closed off to ever playing it because it's full price. There's definitely a constant number of sales going on throughout the year that you can take advantage of, and you shouldn't be worried about not being able to get a game because you don't want to pay full price. Like, that shouldn't hold you back at all when you're thinking of getting a digital console. When it comes to new games, it just makes even less sense to be worried about paying full price up front when you're going to pay full price up front whether you bought the digital edition of the game or the physical actual disc for the game, because whichever one you get, they're going to be the same price if you buy it on day one. And the only advantage someone with a disc might have is, having the ability to return it and getting their money back. If you know you're only limited to digital media and you know you can't return it, or if you have only one return left on your Sony account, then you're going to be more careful about where you go and spend a full amount of money on a game that you're kind of iffy about. If you're on the fence for a game, don't pay for it and wait until you see something or actually play it, or I don't know, get a second opinion, try the game, maybe give it some time, and then pay full price if you know that game's not going to drop in price. There's games like that. They just don't lose their value. They're going to be good games. They're going to be praised, and they'll eventually go on sale, but they're going to be up there. And if you're iffy about a game, just don't spend the full amount. But if you know with certainty that you're going to play this game and own this game no matter what, if it's a beloved franchise, I doubt you have any intentions of trying it and then returning it. You're probably just going to straight up buy it and not look back. When Horizon Forbidden West comes out, I'm going to buy it and not look back. I'm going to pay the same amount of money that someone that's going to buy the disc version is going to pay, and I'm not going to feel bad that I spent the same amount as them, and they're probably buying it with intentions of not returning it. The cool thing is that maybe later on they can trade it in for store credit somewhere. If that's something you have in the back of your mind, you're someone that likes to keep physical media, knowing that you're going to trade it in. I know when I actually used to buy disc games, I knew they weren't just going to live on my shelf forever. I would go and trade them in and buy something new. And if that's not something you really care about, then there's no need really to even worry about that. You're buying to own and buying it to just collect it, then you're just going to keep that on your shelf and not look back. But that's the same approach that I have when I'm buying a digital game that I know I'm gonna absolutely care about and love, and I won't even care if it's good or bad. I just want to own it to have it because it's part of a beloved franchise. If they were to make a Jak 4 right now, a Jak and Daxter sequel to a fourth installment, it doesn't matter what that game would look like, sound like. Odds are I'm just going to buy it regardless if it's good or bad. I just want it as a part of my collection, whether it's digital or physical. I just want to have that in my, inventory, I guess, in my library. It's going to really depend on who you are as a gamer and how much you care about physical media and how you feel about only having games tied to an account. I've heard a good point being made, I don't know, if someday my account gets hacked or banned, or I lose access to my account for some reason. If that's a worry that is constantly in the back of your mind, then you're shutting out the idea entirely to owning a digital console. And it's a fair argument, you don't feel safe having all your games tied to an account. I just like to stay optimistic. I have access to my account. Wherever my account goes, my games go, and I will always have them on there. It's just nice to not think about what could happen if I lose all my games, so I rather just not think about that at all and just think, hey, wherever I go with this account, these games will follow, and there's no way I can lose them in real life. That gives physical games a con in the fact that you can actually lose them or misplace them or have them scratched or messed up and then have to buy a new one, and that's something that just doesn't and can't happen when you are only playing games digitally or owning them digitally. Another thing is actually having to swap out the game. You never have to worry about that. Whatever games you have installed, you're swapping between those games without leaving your chair, if that's something that you care about. It's not something that I'm constantly thinking about, but it is an extra step to have to take out your game and put it back in. It's not a big step, and it's not something that might affect everyone, but it's not something that I think about while I'm playing my games. I just instantly switch between my games. We just swap within the system itself. We don't have to get up, go to the shelf, pick out a game, and do any of that. I do like physical games. I like seeing them and having them on a shelf, but I've realized that I don't care enough to actually keep that up. It just doesn't mean that much to me. When it comes to Nintendo, it's a different story. I actually like owning my Nintendo games, and I think it has something to do with the value that those games carry over time, and you know that they're not going to depreciate. Well, at least most of them. But most of those first-party games are going to stay up there in value no matter how many years go by. And it's kind of nice seeing like a valuable collection of games. And there's even games on there that might not be easy to find physically. With PS5, it's sort of been different. I've just cared less because we are moving forward into an era where digital things are just the norm. I mean, they're adding value now to digital pictures, and you can pay hundreds and thousands of dollars for them. So me not having a physical game isn't really like affecting me. I still own my game on my console. It's still tied to my account. I can still play it, and that's what's important to me, actually being able to play the game when it comes to the PS5 games and stuff. But moving on from physical versus digital, we could go on all day about it. The overview for digital versus physical, it gets tricky. It gets, really picky. I guess it has to be the thing that you personally care about, whether you're going to have a physical game or a digital game. If you don't care, you're probably going to be like me, and you're going to love your games no matter where they're at, as long as you can play them. But if when it comes to buying games and waiting for sales, you're going to have that opportunity to buy that game. At some point, it will go on sale, and it's becoming more normal for digital games to go on sale. So you're not always paying full price for them if that's something that people are worried about, which I think is something that's stopping certain people from buying digital consoles. But from my experience, even though it's been a year with PS5, I've been buying digital games for much longer than that, and I've never had an issue, and I probably will continue to for the foreseeable future. So yeah, no red flag for me on digital games, and I've actually been quite happy. I've gotten a bunch of games on sale even recently. Even though Deathloop is a relatively new game, even on the digital storefront, it went on sale for $30, and that's half price from the original $60 or $70 that it cost to get physical or digitally. So it did not take that long for the sale to come to the digital side of things. I can't even say that you have an advantage if you have a disc, because the game's going to be smaller when you put it on your console. The games are the same size. The disc just acts as a key to unlock the game when it's, it installs the game to your system, and it requires you to put the disc in when you want to play it. But it's still the same size as the digital version of that game. So there's no advantage when it comes to storage, whether you're going to use digital or physical. And speaking of storage, that's going to be the next thing I'm going to talk about. Hey Google, how many gigabytes does the PS5 have?
667.2 gigabytes.
Out of the box, the PS5 Digital Edition and Physical Edition are both 667 gigabytes of storage. That's how much storage you get. They advertise a little bit over that amount, but when you actually have your UI and whatever else is on here, this operating system, the games, the apps, everything that's pre-installed on the system, you have 667 gigs, which doesn't sound like a lot because it's not. Make use of that space however you please. I've actually had to delete a bunch of games. In the year that I've had the PlayStation, that is my reality. I've had to delete games to install new games, and when I'm done playing those games or not done playing those games, if another game I want to play is bigger, I delete something, and I've had to intermingle these games and have them take turns living on the hard drive or the SSD because there's just not enough space to have all of them. And we now have the ability to expand our storage and add an SSD to our PlayStation, and you can use that and have however much storage you want, but the prices for those hard drives or solid state drives are pretty up there right now, and I rather just delete and install games as I'm going. And if you have PS4 games, you can put those on like an external hard drive that you might have 4 terabyte external hard drive that is not capable of running your PS5 games on, but you can throw a bunch of PS4 games on there. And in the year that I've had the PS5, there's been a lot of PS4 games that I've played on my PS5. So moving forward, maybe that will change, and I will really need more space to have PS5 games running on my system. But right now, I've just had to delete and install and delete and install. And it's just, that's the reality of not having, a lot of space on the system. And with games like Warzone or Call of Duty's just being bigger and bigger, well, actually, I think they've kind of done better. And I also think there's some sort of compression tech being used in the PS5 to make certain games even smaller than their counterparts or like whatever size they are on their PS4 versions. There's been cases where the game is actually smaller on PS5 versus PS4 because of the tech being used in the PlayStation to decrease those file sizes. So that is pretty interesting. I don't know how much better they can make things or how much smaller they can make games so that you can have more storage, but the fact that it's happening at all is pretty cool. I've actually just become aware that I might have to delete something. Like, I just guess I'm used to it at this point. Maybe some people won't get used to it or don't want to get used to it, but it's definitely something that I've just grown to do normally. Like, I just think it's normal now to delete a game, make space for a new game. I'll even be like, oh, you guys want to play that game tomorrow? Well, I'm going to install it overnight or let it download for a few hours because I don't have it installed and I'm not going to wait. Like, that's just the reality of it. The other day I downloaded like 3 games at a time. I think it was Tales of Arise, Returnal, and Deathloop. And I was like, there's no way this is going to fit on there. Whatever happened before I installed those games, I had enough room for all 3 of them, even with Vanguard installed and Warzone installed at the same time. So I guess I'm just getting good at when I'm deleting my games to install new games. And if that's something like that you're doing, constantly buying new games and downloading new games, then it is something to worry about. It is something to keep in mind. But if you're playing one constant game or a few constant games and you're not going to be downloading games all the time, then it's probably not something you have to be worried about. And deleting a game at some point to install a new one probably won't happen as often to you like it happens, like as often as it happens to me, because I am constantly doing it just because we're always playing new things and I'm always downloading new things to try them. Or, you know, you get PS Plus games that come out every month. You need space for those. You want to try them. You got to delete something, make room for new games. So yeah, storage has been, you know, a roller coaster, and they do give you the option to expand that. They give you the option to match the speed of your current SSD. It is a super fast solid state drive. It loads your games instantly in a lot of games, and it's really cool. It's one of the greatest and coolest features of the PS5, how quickly load times are. And that in itself, you know, it gives you time to play more than rather than waiting. I don't know how much time, if we add it all together, how much time we've spent looking at load screens, but yeah, short load times is great. And if you want to put more PS5 games so they can run faster and play properly and actually be on your system, you're going to need to make more space or expand your storage so that you can have those games on there. And this is something that's going to apply to either version of whatever, you know, whichever physical or digital version you have. It's going to be the same for both. You're going to have to worry about storage management. You're going to have to keep that in mind. Having a disc, like I said before, won't save you. In the future, I would like to see these consoles hopefully up their storage out of the box. Maybe we'll start seeing an increased base storage in the future. In other iterations of the PS5, maybe we will see, you know, a 2 terabyte default console. I think I would have rather paid $500 to know that I could get 2 terabytes on my digital PS5 than paying $500 to have a disc drive. And that's just me, but hopefully, you know, at some point we can see a higher base storage. That would be nice.